so thrilled to be here with you today. I've always been one that likes to connect with churches across the board. Even though I've always been a member of a church and very active in the church, I've also been one that went to multiple churches. Sometimes just to listen, sometimes I am a musician and I would play the piano for them. So I'm just thrilled to be here with you today. And I will be talking about Lockport Cares. And I looked at your website and I see that you are supporters of Lockport Cares, and that is wonderful. We talk about the people coming in, and yes, we do have old and young and even children at times. COVID changed some of that, but I'll be getting into that a little bit more. But I want to start out with looking at Matthew chapter 8, verse 20. And a scribe had come up to Jesus, and he'd heard him speak, and he said, "Oh, Master, I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus had an interesting response to him. Now, wouldn't you think that, this guy's offering to go with him? That would be a good thing. He'd help him carry his luggage. He'd help him set up everything that he needed. But Jesus looked at him and he said, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have lodging places, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." I think when we think about Jesus, we don't think about him being homeless. We don't think about him not having a place to lay his head. But if you read through the Gospels, you'll find that he spent the whole night in prayer sometimes, that he sometimes stayed with friends, that he slept in a boat. And there's even some verses that say that his family came looking for him. But nowhere does it say at the end of his day of serving others did he go home and have a nice warm dinner and go to bed. We think of him as turning water into wine. We think of him as healing the sick, healing the blind. It's unlikely that we think of him not having a place to sleep, but he told us that. And we probably don't think of the men and the women and the children that sleep out in the gazebo because they have no place to go. Or like the man I just talked to the other day, a husband and a wife and a 1-year-old child sleeping in their truck because he lost his job, so therefore he lost his apartment and has no place to go. We don't think of those that are sleeping in the parks, or there's a whole group of people that have their sleeping bags and sleep over by the locks in Lockport because they have no place to go. I never thought about this very much until I got involved in Lockport Cares. But at the end of the day, when it was raining or snowing, I was just glad to go home and have a place to call my own. And as I've gotten the last 7 or 8 years involved in Lockport Cares, my whole perspective has changed. When I hear people talk about the homeless, what they usually say is something along the lines of, well, if they would just get a job, then everything would be okay. They perceive the homeless as being dangerous or lazy, and that's why they are where they are. Well, there's many causes of homelessness, and it's not because people are lazy or dangerous. Homeless people have many times lost their jobs. Many times there's family conflict. I have a young girl right now, she's in her 20s, that ever since she was a little girl, her and her father did not get along, and he would tell her she was useless and worthless, and she was never going to amount to anything. And then finally, when she got to be 20, she was in such depression. In fact, when she came to me, they told me that she had attempted suicide just a few weeks before. So I said to her, "How did you do that?" She said, "Well, I cut my wrists." I said, "May I see your wrists?" She had scars all the way up her arm. And I said to her, "Honey," I said, you didn't try to commit suicide." I says, "I believe that there's a part of you that wishes you could go to sleep and not wake up. But you've been traumatized by all that you've heard and all you've experienced, and you wanted to distract yourself from this pain, and you wanted to feel this pain instead." And if you could have seen the look on her face, she goes, "Yes, that's what it is." I've got almost 30 years experience as a counselor, and I worked with a lot of traumatized women, so I recognize that. And this girl was the saddest girl I've seen. So all kinds of problems. And the homeless, when they're out there, they experience not only homelessness, which is devastating enough, especially if they were productive and they had jobs. I have another lady, she just graduated from a program. She had worked for 35 years, and then she fell at work, and she had multiple breaks in her back, and she's become disabled, and she can't work anymore. And then she ran out of her money, and then she doesn't have any money coming in, and social services said she made too much money while she was working, so they weren't going to help her out. And here 4 months, and she's in her mid-50s. 4 months she was living in her car because she had no place to go. And the homeless have limited access to health care. They have problems getting enough food because oftentimes they don't even know about the soup kitchens, or they don't know that the Salvation Army provides meals, or some churches provide meals. They have trouble staying safe. They are victimized during the night when they're sleeping, or they're victimized when they're walking around during the day trying to find some place to go. They experience stress, unsanitary living conditions, and the most obvious, exposure to severe weather. And can you imagine, with some of the cold weather we have up here, having no place to go, or sleeping in a tent?
Sorry, would you speak up a little louder, please?
I'll try. Yeah. Okay. I know I have a quiet voice, and I try, but I forget. I just get caught up on what I'm doing, and I forget to talk louder. So how did Lockport Cares get started? Back in 2007, St. John's Community Outreach Center in Lockport really began to experience a burden from God that we needed a homeless shelter. So he contacted a number of churches in the Lockport area, in addition to treatment providers. At the time, I was working for Niagara County Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, and so I was the one that went as a representative of Niagara County. But somebody came from social services, somebody came from different other agencies that provide services to the people, and we talked about the need and how to get started in getting a shelter. By 2008, we had achieved our 501c3 status, and we were graciously donated a home at 193 Genesee Street, and that became our first shelter. And that could hold a number of 11 people. And that opened, and we got our first guest in November of 2009. And then in 2013, we were able to purchase the house immediately next door at 188. And with the help of Habitat for Humanity, we opened it up, we remodeled it, and then COVID hit, and everything changed. Because of the restrictions, we had to close 192, and we only had 188 opened. We could do the social distancing better, we could fit with all the criteria that was required of us. So now today, 188 is our primary shelter, and we can house 9 people. We rarely take in children because we're not allowed to bring in more than 9 people. We have one unit on the first floor for those that are disabled. And if we have enough, and then the other bed, we have 8 other beds around. So if we have a mother and a child in that first floor room, that means one of our adult beds upstairs we can't use because that would make 10 people. So the law is just real tricky about how we can do this. And 192 right now is closed. However, we have a team that is currently, has been meeting several times to get that shelter opened again. That's our goal for this year, is to get 192 open and focus on families and mothers and children. We primarily serve Lockport area. However, we do take people from Niagara Falls, and we do take people from Erie County if there's no availability in Erie County. People that come in can stay for 15 business days plus weekends and holidays. That gives them roughly 3 weeks. And for 3 weeks, they get a safe night's sleep, they get 3 meals a day, and snacks. They get the social because everybody's together. And if we cannot bring a person in for whatever reason, if it's because our house is full, we don't have any beds available, or if it's because they're coming from a domestic violence situation. Unfortunately, we cannot bring anybody that is trying to escape domestic violence. Because we are closed every day from 9 in the morning till 6 at night, they're out on the street. And a perpetrator of domestic violence frequently will stalk them and try to find out where they are. And so we don't have the ability to keep them safe. But anybody that we cannot bring in, we give them referrals for where they can go, either to another homeless shelter or to domestic violence shelter or to the Y, because they do a lot of domestic violence work. So everybody is given a referral if we can't house them. Now we offer other services too, not just a place to sleep and a meal. We offer case management. Because of my year's experience, I am the case manager. So when people come in, they are scheduled with an appointment with me, and I work with them from the very first week they come in. And we identify potential housing, what they need to get that housing, rental assistance, furniture, that kind of thing. And we look at their health. Do they have mental health problems? Do they need to link with mental health? Do they have a medical doctor? Do they have physical health issues that they need help with? And I make sure that they're linked with all the services they need. Also look at support. Do they have family support? Do they have friends? And what about employment or disability? So I work with them the 3 weeks that they're there, and I just started this last June, so it's only been a few months, but at least 20% of our people, when they leave with a place to go to. So, we're increasing that and doing well. The other program we offer is Living Well, and this provides all men and women that come into our shelter with instruction and hands-on learning and basic life skills, while offering them the opportunity to feel and to know the love of Christ. And that sentence right there goal of Lockport Cares, that people come in to feel and know the love of Christ. This one lady that I said lived for 4 months, that in her 50s, lived for 4 months in her vehicle. She just completed our program, and she exited on Monday. On Tuesday, she asked if she could have an appointment, and I do. If somebody exits within the week before, I will meet with them at least one more time after they leave. And she came in to show me that she had just received keys to an apartment. And she had an appointment that week for some of her health issues. And she had also started reconnecting with her family, whom she had not talked with for years. So, I mean, that's a true success story. And I sit there, and she started crying, and that's all I needed. So I just began to tear up along with her, because I was just so honored to be a part of that. To be a part of the Living Well program, all of our guests can participate. We have partnered with Save the Michaels, and that's where it's held. So what can you do? We are desperately in need of volunteers. Now, I know that you're already involved. I looked at your website. I see that you participate in our meal ministry, and that you donate clothing, and you give offerings, and we are so, so grateful that you do that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm thrilled to be here to say thank you face to face for all that you've been doing for Lockport Cares as long as you've been doing it. With the opening of 192 this year, we lost so many volunteers because of COVID. They were afraid to be around other people. We need volunteers. So what does a volunteer do? We don't ask you for a ton of hours. We ask you for 3 hours a month. And if you can do more than 3 hours a month, that's great. Some of those responsibilities are from 7 to 10 in the morning. You come in, you serve breakfast. After the guests leave, you do some light laundry and some light housekeeping. And then another shift is 6 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock at night. The guests are coming back in the house. So you welcome them in and you serve their dinner. Again, you do light laundry and light housekeeping. And you serve their dinner. And then between 8 and 11, you serve snacks, you talk with the guests, you help them with applications. And all of our volunteers and all of our guests, all of our staff are ready and willing and eager to pray with and encourage and support, emotionally support our guests. Other forms of volunteering, you know about the meal ministry. We have intake. That is the one position that they're not in the shelter. I'm a supervisor of the intake. I've been doing that for about 7 or 8 years now. And what I do is I carry a phone, the Lockport Cares phone. And if somebody wants to come in, I'm the first person they speak to. I or one of my team, because I'm now building up a team. And I interview them. And I have the interview form in my computer, and I evaluate their mental health, I evaluate their chemical dependency, I evaluate their physical health, and find out, why are you homeless now, what has happened, what's going on, and I make the determination, can we meet your needs, and do we have the bed availability, and then I go over house rules with them, and then set up an intake time. And then they come to the shelter where they go through the second stage of admission with somebody there. And that's part of the job responsibility between 6 and 8. If you're trained in intake, then you can do it in the shelter. Another responsibility is cleaning, coming in, and we try to, and I don't remember offhand how often this is, but floor to ceiling, we disinfect everything. And I want to say it's once a month, but it might be more often than that. There's grounds work, mowing, tending to the gardens, keeping the grounds clean. Our office manager always has jobs, stuffing envelopes for bulk mailings that we send out, helping to sort through the donations that come in, putting labels on them, making sure they're all washed and folded and put in our storage area, helping with fundraising events, and financial support. And you can donate either online or via text, through checks or cash. And I do have a table set up at the end of the hall here, and I've got a whole bunch of paperwork on everything that I've just talked about. So anything that you're interested in, you can take that with you. Now, we do have a fundraising event coming up at the end of February 24th. It's a Saturday. We call it Coldest Night of the Year. And people sign up to, you get sponsors, and you sign up to walk. And we have a lady that maps out a route. It's only like 1.5 miles or 2 miles. And you walk this route, and you pray as you walk, and you meet people, and you talk with people, and you get to minister to people. And you've got sponsors that are sponsoring you to do the walk. So that's the fundraising part. That's the money that Lockport Cares gets. And then afterwards, Christ Community Church opens up their church, and we go in there, and we get coffee and hot chocolate and tea and cookies and snacks and stuff. If you're unable to walk but you want to volunteer, because they're looking for team leaders, and a team is of 5 people, and they're looking for team members, but they're also looking for people to be in Christ Community Church. And I don't know exactly what they're going to do, because I'm doing that for the first time this year. They did tell me that they would have a table for me, and I would do whatever I'm supposed to do at this table. So I'm guessing that I would do the registration when people come in and collect their donations. So if you can't walk or you don't like to walk, then you can meet in the church and help serve the refreshments and do whatever else she needs. Anybody that signs up today to participate in the Coldest Night of the Year, and anybody that gives a donation of any sort, or signs up to become a volunteer, or at least for more information, will receive a Lockport Cares winter hat. I have a bunch of those out there. We also have a wish list, which is also on our website, although I have a printed copy. We don't accept any donations that are not on our wish list. We have limited storage, so we know what we need for our guests, and so we ask that you just stick with what's on our wish list. And most important is prayer. Praying for our staff, praying for our guests. They come in with a whole lot of problems, a whole lot of issues. And since I've come on board as the case manager, I'm beginning to realize more and more how traumatized so many of them are. At the end of this, I will be back there. I could stay for a little bit to answer questions. If I'm unable to answer some of your questions, I will take your number or give you my number, and you can call me, and I'd be more than willing to answer your questions over the phone, because I'm going with Pastor Shelley to Heartland as soon as we're finished here. And I'd like to close with Matthew 25. When I think of, the homeless and think of what we do, Jesus had some real encouragement. In Matthew 25, I'm going to begin at verse 34. Verse 31 says, when the Son of Man comes back. So he's talking about when Christ comes back. Verse 34 says, "Then the king will say to those on his right hand, 'Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you brought me together with yourselves. And you welcomed me, you entertained me, and you lodged me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me with help and ministering care.'" Every time, every prayer you pray, every dollar you give, every meal you bring, every pair of socks you donate, the Lord looks down with a big smile on his face, because as you've done it to the least of these, you've done it to him. And so God bless you, and thank you.